You ever wondered how big a Viking army was? Well, the answer to that is, how long is a piece of string? It varied considerably. That's basically what I'm saying. Today we think of armies in their thousands, hundreds of thousands. We think of Roman legions marching over the hill. Well, it varies. We know there was an account of about 17 men who ravaged East Anglia. They got away with it because were they super armed with massive weaponry? No, one had a spear point, one had an axe, and I think there was several with cudgels. If you're not used to fighting a gang of men with some form of weaponry or cudgels, you're not going to argue with them. Life's too short. They'd had enough problems as it was. So, we talk about the Vikings being invited over by King Vortigern, and there were 3 ships, and Hengist and Horsa came over with their 3 ships to clear the enemies of King Vortigern out of the way. Who let them down? He betrayed them. So they said, alright, we're taking it, and they attacked. Now, 3 longships. How big is a longship? Again, we don't really know. Obviously it's going to be at least a dozen or so, but you've got to, we don't know is the short answer. An army is a band of people, not necessarily men. Women fought as well, and I know there's howls of derision about that, but fact is, yes, it's been proven archaeologically. There was a skeleton and a program done that the skeleton in the grave turned out to be a woman with weapon sets. So there. And why not? There's nothing wrong with that. But the size of armies, you also have to allow for the fact of telling stories. 1,000 men sounds better than, say, 10 men. And they would say, oh, you fought like 10 men, or whatever. There were large armies, I'm sure. As we go into King Guthrum and things like that, they would be pretty well armed, but in the case of Ireland, the Vikings were a lot better armed, more modern weaponry than the Irish, who had traditionally sort of Celtic weapons. They weren't as good as the Norse. Well, I'm not saying they weren't as brave, but they certainly didn't have the weapons and technology that the Vikings did. Later on, as Brian Boru was finding out, we sorted the Vikings out eventually. But the size of an army is also, I think, the way, if they're very successful, Guthrum's Grand Army, you've already bigged it up before they even started. Without that, we wouldn't have where we are today, Derby, Farm of the Deer. And if you're just a poor simple farmer and somebody comes at you and they're armed, and you're not, what are you going to do? So, and what is an army? An army has a rank structure, a field of command. Whereas the Roman army, you've got all these ranks that we can recognise. You had the king, and then you'd have huscarls, which were bodyguards. Then you have Njals, who are sort of like the aristocrats, and then the others. And it's whoever was there at the time. It could be thousands, it could be hundreds, it could be tens. It depends on where you are, what you're doing. The short answer is, I'm saying we don't know how big an army is. What is the definition of an army? Whatever it was highly successful. As I say, the country was cut in half, where you had Wessex and the Danelaw. You had to have troops to, probe, and in many cases they were raiding over the borders, both sides. Don't come away with the fact that because it's a Viking, he's bad. No, they're as bad as each other, and some of the things they did were as bad as each other. So, that's basically how it is. But as I say, things we may find out in later years or decades exactly what it is, but we view history from our perspective down, and what we think of as an army and is not what they think of as an army. So anyway, bear that in mind when you read the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles and they say Guthrum's army moved. It could be dozens, it could be thousands, we don't know. So anyway, I hope that's helped you. If you've enjoyed this video, let us know, I really like it. And you'd maybe like to share it with your friends and pals, we'd love that. And if you've got any comments, leave it with us. That's the important thing, we're here for you. Yeah, we do our bits and pieces we're interested in, but we're interested in you because basically when all's said and done, you are our bosses. You tell us what you want. So anyway, please stay safe and stay groovy. Bye.